Good morning. So today we are going to discuss about the ethical challenges in business. Last time we discussed about the core principles of good governance. We discussed three principles, namely fairness, um, transparency, and accountability. So let me just give you a short review. When we talk about fairness, it has something to do with not just observing equality, but also practicing equity, which means that the opportunity that will be given for a person in order for him or her to improve or to be better depends on the needs that we need to address. So when we talk about transparency, it has something to do with keep making public all of the information about the company or about the organization that can be made public. So it depends upon now the discretion of the company, which are to be considered as public and which are considered or supposed to be treated as confidential. The last is accountability, which is highly related to responsibility and standing up or facing the consequences of your actions, decisions, and attitude. Now, in relation to that, we will now be continuing or proceeding to our lesson on the ethical challenges in the business. Pag sinabi nating ethical, diba, from the root word ethics, this is our concept of what is right and what is wrong. Kaya kung minsan, ang pagkakaintindi natin sa tama at mali ay dumidepende kung ano ba yung pinaniniwalaan natin. Because ethics is directly influenced, our concept of right and wrong is directly influenced by the laws, the principles, and the beliefs na na-feed sa atin o kung saan tayo lumaki. Kasama na dyan, syempre, yung paniniwala natin in terms of our religion, that there are some practices, there are religious practices which are considered to be acceptable or to be right depending on sa kanilang mga pre-existing rules, regulations, or laws, or simply beliefs. Katulad halimbawa ng isa sa mga main differences talaga sa paniniwala ng mga Kristiyano at ng mga Muslim ay yung pagkakaroon ng maraming asawa o more than one wife. In the religious belief of the Catholic or the Christians, you are supposed to have only one wife and you should be wed only once, because if you get wed or if you have more than one um, husband or wife, that would be considered as ano ba yan? It's already a sin because it's considered na ano na sa Pilipino yung pakikiapid, adultery. Pero pag ang pinagbasihan natin ay paniniwala ng mga kapatid nating Muslim, okay lang magkaroon tayo ng lagpas sa isang asawa as long as, so merong catch, as long as nabibigay natin yung fair treatment sa lahat ng magiging asawa. So that's one perfect example of ethics, of our concept of how our religious beliefs, our religious upbringing, our religious inclination affect or influences our concept of right and wrong or our ethical beliefs. Ganun din kung ano yung pre-existing na mga laws sa isang bansa. Kasi may mga bansa na pinagbabawal ang abortion, may mga bansa naman na okay lang na magkaroon ng abortion as long as the abortion would be conducted within the parameters of the law. Ibig sabihin, kung yung magulang ay may health condition na bawal siya magbuntis, so pinapayagan ng abortion and other matters. I just gave you an example of how we do ethics or how ethics works in our lives. So kung yung buhay natin na apektuhan din yung konsepto ng tama at mali, ganun din pag tayo ay nagko-conduct ng business. So I'm sorry that I was not able to prepare PowerPoint presentation kasi hindi ko makita yung file ko. Alam ko meron akong file nito, kaya ito muna pong module ang gagamitin natin. By this time, I hope that each and every one of you has already released or taken his or her module from our office, no, from the high school department. So we begin with saying that ethical issues in business encompass a wide array of or areas within an organization's ethical standards. So ito yung sinasabi ko kanina. Depende sa isang organization kung ano yung kanyang mga ethical standards. That's why, di ba, one of the roles of business in the society and in the community is creating that shared value. And the shared value is also reflected in the policy or standards within the company. Fundamental ethical issues in business include promoting conduct based on integrity and trust. Kaya nga yung sa core principles of good governance, kasama doon yung tinatawag nating fairness and yung sa fairness and yung accountability, okay? And transparency as well, because all these three principles, they promote integrity and trust, okay? But more complex issues include accommodating diversity, empathetic decision making, and compliance and governance that is consistent with the organization's core values. Not just core values, but it also include the mission, vision, and goals of a particular organization or business. So ano daw yung sinasabi dito? Pag sinabi nating complex issues, ibig sabihin the ethics or the ethical issues in an organization or in a company does not only cover itong pagpo-promote natin ng integrity and trust, but they also cover complex issues like diversity, decision making, compliance, and governance. So when we talk about diversity, kasi yung isang business organization, the more diverse, the better. Because when you have a diverse group of workers, that means that you pay regard or you pay respect on the differences of people. So, ibig sabihin, you honor diversity. You are not, you try your best na mawala yung tinatawag nating diskriminasyon sa ating organisasyon o sa kumpanya. Ganon din yung empathetic decision making. Kasi hindi naman ibig sabihin na may mga empleyado tayong nagkaroon ng violations, tatanggalin na natin kaagad. Kailangan pa rin natin mag-practice ng pagiging tao at pagiging makatao. So yun po. So today, we are going to discuss some of the common ethical challenges in the business ethic. When we say common, these are the challenges that happen in most organizations or in most businesses. Pangkaraniwan o pinakamadalas siyang nangyayari. Kaya common lang po muna yung i-discuss natin. Eventually, siguro when you go to college, you would encounter, you would be discussing more of the other ethical challenges aside from what we are going to discuss today. So, isa ay yung tinatawag nating bribery. What is bribery? Can you read, Jason?
Bribery, the act of taking or receiving something with the intention of influencing the recipient in some way favorable to the party providing the bribe. Bribery is typically considered illegal and can be punishable by jail time or stiff fines if authorities find out about the bribe.
Okay. In the global business scene, gift giving is used to establish or pay respect to business relationships. But when is it a gift and when is it a bribe? Bribery is usually given in relation to winning a business deal. It can be a form of cash payments or in kind, such as international trips or a condominium unit. Bribery in any form increases the cost of doing business, which is then absorbed by the company or is passed on to the consumers. This practice is undesirable, ethically wrong, and demoralizing. Ano sa Filipino yung bribery? Yes, Chelsea.
Panunuhol po.
Okay, tama. Bakit tayo nagsusuhol? Bakit ba tayo nagsusuhol, Jason? Jason, hep-hep?
Ay, ma'am, ako po ba? Ma'am,
Dalawa lang kami estudyante ko, Jason. So, hindi naman Jason ang pangalan ni Chelsea. O, Jason, bakit tayo
nag-choppy po
nanunuhol? Bakit tayo nanunuhol? O ba't tayo
Ma'am, para po,
nagsusuhol?
ma'am, para po, tawag dito, para po mapupunta po sa side natin yung decision nila.
Okay, para mapaboran tayo. Diba? Ibig sabihin mapapunta sa side natin, o mapigyan tayo ng isang pabor. Katulad nga nun, when you do business, because you want to get the deal. Or, nagbibigay tayo ng mga tinatawag nating regalo, pamerienda, kasi gusto nating mapabilis yung mga proseso. Pag nagpupunta tayo sa mga, saan ba? Pag nagpupunta tayo sa City Hall, ganyan, sa munisipyo, sa mga lugar kung saan tayo nag-aayos ng mga papeles, sa PSAs, kung saan-saan man. Minsan nagbibigay tayo ng regalo. Okay? Kasi gusto nating ma-recognize o gusto nating maalala tayo nung binigyan natin ng regalo na, ay oo, siya pala yung nagbigay ng ganito, kabilisan mo nga yan, nakakahiya. So kasama yon. Kaya ngayon, when you go to the government agencies, you would see posters and ano ba yun, mga announcements na nakalagay doon, hindi sila tumatanggap ng regalo kahit na Pasko, anumang anumang okasyon. Kasi kung minsan yung simpleng regalo na ipagkakamali siya sa suhol or an act of bribery because the intention is there. The intention of influencing the decision of the recipient is still there. Hindi man masisilaw sa grandiosong regalo mo, mahihiya kasi nagbigay ka ng merienda o nagbigay ka ng regalo o parang you were so thoughtful to think na baka kakailanganin niya ng pagkain o kung ano man yung iniregalo mo. Pero ang tanong dito, kailan ba siya matatawag na gift? Kailan daw matatawag na suhol? Kayo, sa palagay niyong dalawa, when can you say that you were being bribed? And when can you say that a person is just being thoughtful na naalala kang dalhan ng regalo? Kailan natin masasabing yung tinanggap mo ay isang suhol? Kailan naman natin masasabing ito ay isang regalo? Yes, Chelsea.
Suhol po pag may kapalit po siyang inaasahan.
But we cannot be so discreet in saying it. Paano natin masasabi na kahit hindi sabihin sa atin direkta na may inaasahan siyang kapalit, suhol yon at hindi simpleng regalo? Usually, ang mga nagsusuhol, hindi niyan sinasabi na, bibigyan kita nito, pero kailangan ko ng ganito. Usually, they are not as open as that. But they leave everything to your understanding, to your discernment. So, kung halimbawa kayo yung nasa sitwasyon ganun, kailan yung masasabing sinusuhulan na pala kayo, kailan nyo naman masasabing, ay hindi, regalo lang to. Kaya nyo yan. Nandyan lang din sa binasa natin. Jason?
Ma'am, yung gift giving, gift po siya kapag ano po, may partnership na pong nagaganap.
So pag matagal na kayong suki, gano'n, no? O kaya pag matagal na kayong mga magkakilala at matagal na kayong nag-engage sa business. So tama yun, Jason. Pag matagal na ang partnership nyo, malamang sa malamang ito ay simpleng regalo lang. O, pero kapag first or second time niyo pa lang mag-deal, tapos alam mong merong multi-million business deal na nakasaalang-alang dun sa inyong pag-uusap. Tapos sasabihin niyang, I have here a 2 round trip ticket to Hong Kong. Baka gusto mong magbakasyon muna. Tapos binigay sa'yo, yun. Ano na yun? Suhol na yun. Okay. Another thing for you to say that it's suhol and it's not regalo or gift is that if the gift that you are receiving is very expensive, considering that there is no occasion, and you are not actually friends with each other, or you have not established a good relationship in the past. So yun yung masasabi natin yung suhol. Eh kung yan naman ay yung mga simpleng walang kinalaman sa business, di ba? Pag kayo ay nahuli ng pulis dahil sa overspeeding, beating the red light, o kaya hindi naka-helmet, hindi naka-seatbelt, pagkatapos, bago nyo iabot yung inyong lisensya, ay may inipit kayong 100, yung ba yung regalo o suhol, Chelsea?
Suhol po.
Bakit naman naging suhol? Yung 100 lang.
Kasi po ini-influence po niya yung decision ng police na sana po hindi na po siya tikitang gano'n.
So, okay, dito ngayon, walang kinalaman ang presyo. 100 lang yon, pero dahil wala naman kayong relationship in the past, hindi kayo naging magka-partner at wala kayong naipuunang pagpapahalaga sa isa't isa, malahing 100 lang yun ay suhol. Okay? So, for example, you have here a situation involving a professor of a university. So, Ornel Lopez has been a research professor for 2 years in a well-known university. He has this reputation of being a terror professor among the students. Almost half of his classes always fail because his standards are high. Because of this, a number of parents whose children failed reported this to the college chair and demanded a clear explanation on the computation of grades. Failed students claimed that they did not deserve to have failing grades because they were able to comply with the class requirements. There were hearsays, sabi-sabi, that Mr. Lopez has been accepting bribes from some parents in exchange for a passing grade. What he does is he puts a failing grade to those students in the brink of failing. For instance, if a student got a grade of 75 to 77, he will manipulate it and make it 74. So if the parents of the students who failed were not able to give a gift, their children will get a failing grade. But for those who were able to give a gift, their children will get a passing grade. Ito, madalas ito sa college. Now, I myself was a victim of this when I was in college. So, meron akong isang teacher noon, ang tawag namin 2 por 2 para sa 2. Ganun kasi ang marka sa college. 1, 2, 3. Eh, mas mababa, mas pataas. Baka mamaya matuwa kayo pag meron kayong 5. Uy, taas nito. 5, bagsak yun. Ang tawag namin sa kanya noon, 2 por 2 para sa 2. Kasi kung mababa ang grades mo, halimbawa you were given a grade of 3 or 2.25, 2.5, 2.75, and nag-maintain yan ng scholarship o kaya mas pataas sa 2, ng 1.5 ganun, na mini-maintain kang scholarship, magbibigay ka lang ng kahoy na 2 por 2 para tumaas yung iyong marka. Kahit hindi ka masyado magpapasok. Bakit 2 por 2 ang hinahanap niya? Because according to him, meron siyang, magsisimula siya ng isang, parang poultry, at gagawa siya ng mga pulungan ng So, yung mga nagbigay ng 2 por 2, pataas ang marka. Ako, 2 lang talaga ibinigay sa akin. Hindi kasi ako nagbigay ng 2 por 2. So, lumabas, kahit na kami, 4 lang kami pumapasok ng matino sa kanya, kami pang 4 ang mababa ang marka. Kami pa yung naging 2 lang. So, yun. So, yung ginawa na to ni Mr. Lopez is similar to what I've experienced in the past. Sa kanya naman, gift. Bahala ka kung anong gift ang bibigay mo. Baka mas bongga, mas mataas ang marka. Now, this is not Correct. Eh, minsan nangyayari din ito, pwedeng hindi siya sa business dealings, gano'n. Pero di ba meron tayong mga, siguro hindi nyo pa na-experience kasi mga bata pa kayo, hindi pa kayo nag-aayos ng mga papel. Meron akong mga cases before na pupunta ka ng government offices na kung sino minsan yung may bitbit, siyang mas inaasikaso. So yun, it's not gift anymore. It's also a form of bribery. Pero ano nga lang siya, medyo disimulado, gano'n. Hindi masyadong bongga yung ibibigay. Pero alam niyo naman, minsan yung ibang tao, pag meron kang bitbit, talagang mas gumaganda ang aura sa'yo. No? So, ayan po. Next is the conflict of interest. Pag sinabi naman natin conflict of interest, this has something to do with, okay, or this happens when an individual must choose between promoting personal interest and business interest. Okay, examples of personal conflict of interest include using company information for personal gain or purchasing goods from relatives. Ibig sabihin po ng conflict of interest, yung nahahati ang desisyon mo dun sa personal mong pangangailangan at dun sa trabaho, yung desisyong kailangan mong gawin para sa trabaho. Halimbawa, in my case, kung ako ay principal ng high school department, tapos nagtayo din ako ng high school department nag-open ako ng private high school na sa Santa Rosa. Posibleng ako, mahati na yung aking mga desisyon kung alin yung una kong papaboran o alin yung una kong aaksyonan. Kung halimbawa, biglang nagkaroon ng problema doon sa tinayo kong eskwelahan, nagkaroon din ng problema rito. Minsan, syempre, personal kong business yung nasa Santa Rosa, kahit nagkasabay sila ng problema, pwede kong iwanan yung dito, sabihin ko na lang sa mga coordinators ko, ay ayusin nyo nga ito at pupunta lang ako ron. So, nagkakaroon ng conflict of interest. Ano pa? Pwede rin siya if you are a purchasing officer of your company. Siyempre, yung mga purchasing officer niya, kilala niyan yung mga suppliers. Okay, there would be instances na bibili na siya ng mga personal niyang gamit. Doon pa rin siya pupunta sa mga suki ng kumpanya. Bakit? Kasi from there, dahil kilala na siyang member ng empleyado ng kumpanya, suki yung kumpanya, posible siyang makakuha ng mas mataas na discount. Okay? Not as a customer, not as a plain customer, but because he or she is connected to one of their biggest consumers or customers. So, nagkakaroon ng conflict of interest na sa halip na ang inuuna ay yung sa trabaho na isasama yung personal na interest o personal na pangangailangan. So, here is an example. Jason, you would be the accountant. Chelsea, you would be the procurement manager. Let's read. Go.
Hey, Alisa, got a minute?
For you, always.
I was reviewing invoices and saw that one of them had your home address on it. Did you start a new business without telling me?
No, it's my son. He just graduated and had a hard time finding work, so I helped him start a little service business and signed him on to help us maintain some equipment a little while ago.
I thought he studied marketing. Does he know anything about servicing heavy equipment?
He did study marketing, but those jobs are tough to find. He's a quick learner though. Give him a couple of days with a screwdriver and he'll become an expert in no time.
I thought you need to have a lot of experience to service that equipment. Those guys always charge the highest rate. If you don't do it right, it could be dangerous.
What? Don't you think my son is smart enough? If I remember correctly, your cousin was a university dropout and had no experience in manufacturing, but I pulled a few strings and helped him get a supervisor job anyway. That was only a few months ago.
Okay, so ano yung sitwasyon natin dito? Dun sa binasa nyo. We have the procurement and procurement manager, purchasing officer, gano'n. So yung taga-bili ng mga kung ano-ano. Or taga-approve, taga-sala ng mga request for purchase. And the accountant. Ano yung hinahanap nilang empleyado? Ang hinahanap nilang empleyado ay ano po, naghahanap sila ng ano? Uy, hinahanap nila yung someone who can do heavy equipment services. Ngayon, si procurement manager, meron siyang anak, tapos ng marketing. Pero ipinapasok niya para maging yan, technician o operator ng heavy equipment. Kaya ang sabi ni accountant, kala ko kailangan mo ng maraming experience para maging ganito. Kaya ang sabi ng procurement manager, magaling yung anak ko. Bigyan mo lang siya ng ilang panahon at saka ng mga tamang gamit, kayang-kaya na niya yan. O kaya sabi ni accountant, ganun ba? Parang nag-aalala siya, bakit kukunin? So, si procurement manager ngayon, sumpatan, anik-anik na sila. Sabi niya, what? You don't think my son is smart enough? Palagay mo, hindi magaling yung anak ko? Kung natatandaan ko, merong kang pinsan na drop out sa university at walang experience sa manufacturing, pero tinulungan ko siyang makahanap ng trabaho, naging supervisor pa. At kailan lang yun? So, anong conflict of interest ang nakita natin sa sitwasyon na ito? Yes, Chelsea?
Unqualified po yung hinar na employee.
Pero, anong gustong mangyari ng procurement manager?
Ibigay pa rin po sa kanya yung trabaho kasi po fast learner naman daw po.
At maliban sa fast learner, yung aplikante ay kanyang
Anak po niya.
anak. So, ayun. Ano ngayon ang conflict interest kay procurement manager? Anong conflict nagkaroon siya? Na siya bilang tauhan ng kumpanya, she should know the process. She should know that there are qualifications, there are competencies that a person must possess in order for him or her to be hired on a particular position. But what she is doing is, since the applicant is her son, pinipilit niyang yun ang tanggapin. Kasi anak niya yun. At tinulungan niya yung pinsan o kamag-anak ni accountant. Parang sinasabi niyang, anak ko nga yan kaya nga mas maganda, ayun mo na, itanggapin mo na para naman makatulong din dun sa araw-araw naming gastusin. Kaya niya yan, kayang-kaya niya yan, pag-aaralan niya yan. So, andun yung conflict of interest. Instead of following or adhering to the approved standards of hiring, ipinipilit niya yung sa kanya kasi nga anak niya yun. Gusto niya magkaroon ng trabaho yung kanyang anak. So, naiintindihan natin yung conflict of interest. Thumbs up. Jason, naiintindihan? Conflict of interest. Thank you. Let us now proceed to harassment. Ito yung madalas nating naririnig at I'm sure you are very familiar with harassment or harassment. Kaya lang, ang alam natin madalas ay pag sinabing harassment ay more of a sexual, diba? Hindi lang. Kasi yung although sexual harassment is the most familiar, there are still other forms of harassment or harassment that happens in the office or in an organization. Pwedeng siya, workplace harassment or office bullying. Yan. Magkaiba sila. sa office bullying, ang ginagawa nito, okay? Parang yung school bullying in a sense that aggressor used power towards its victim, but that is where the similarity ends. So when we talk about office harassment, okay, this is where there is aggression, and madalas ang aggressor ay yung mga naka-posisyon o kaya yung nagkakaroon ng office politics o yung tinatawag nating senior members of the company. Kung minsan pag mas matagal na sila yung mas nagiging mas demanding pa sa boss, mas palautos pa kaysa sa boss. Yung dahil ikaw yung bago, yung mga ikaw yung mas maraming trabaho o kaya naman ikaw yung inuutosang pupunta kung saan-saan kahit na wala yun sa job descriptions mo. Dahil gusto mo namang ikaw ay magtagal sa trabaho at gusto mong nakikisama ka, yun, hindi mo alam, nagiging biktima ka na ng office bullying. O kaya naman, pag sinabi natin harassment, aside from sexual na nakikita mong yung sexual harassment hindi lang ito yung hinawakan, yung mga parte ng katawan mong hindi dapat nahahawakan ng kung sino-sino. Sometimes ang harassment can also be giving you that feeling, that uncomfortable feeling, na yung feeling mo yung hinuhubarang ka, feeling mo yung malisyoso yung tingin sa'yo, yung malisyoso yung mga biro sa'yo, pwede siyang maging sexual harassment, no? Meron pang iba, minsan, physical, ganun, kasi ikaw yung dinadagdagan ng maraming trabaho. Mental, kung lagi sinasabi sa'yo, tanga-tanga mo naman, ang hina mo naman umintindi, mali-mali na lang lagi ginagawa mo, o mental doon. Tapos emotional, kung parang laging dinidegrade yung pagkatao mo hanggang nawawalan ka na ng confidence, these are all forms of harassment. So, hindi lang to sexual. Minsan, hindi ka nga nahaharas, pero nabibiktima ka naman ng office bullying. No? Tsaka yung office politics na tinatawag. Yung may ibang napopromote kasi mas malakas sa administrasyon. O kaya naman kasi anak ni ganito o anak ni ganyan, anak ng CEO, anak ng vice president, anak ng chief accountant, anak ng kung sino-sinong Poncio Pilato. Yun yung office politics. Ikaw, meron kang mga magagandang ideas, ayaw pakinggan kasi posibleng sabihin, saan ka lang naman graduate para nagsasasabi mo, kasama yun. That's also a form of harassment. Okay? There are a few elements of workplace harassment. Use of power, use and abuse of power, yung intention to control, a strong personal dislike, yung hindi ka lang bet. Dahil hindi ka bet, hinahayang ikaw ang mahirapan ng mahirapan. May mga ganun kasi tayong feeling, di ba? Hindi pa natin masyado kilala yung tao. Parang alam na natin, ayaw ko sa kanya. Personal attacks. Pwedeng physical, verbal, o kaya naman yung behind your back. Sinisiraan ka, o nagkakalat ng chismis ng kung ano-ano tungkol sa'yo. And with specific objective na either pigilan kang ma-promote o hayaan kang makapag-resign. Pabayaan kang makapag-resign. So here is an example of harassment in the workplace. This one has something to do with Julius, who works as a clerk typist for a large employer. He likes to wear jewelry. Ito yung especially ngayon na gusto yung gender, kinakampaign natin yung gender equality. So si Julius, gusto niya, nagsusuot siya ng mga hikaw, necklace, marami siyang mga mapustura. So his boss, Marichu, think it's weird that as a man, Julius wears jewelry and wants to be a clerical worker. She frequently makes sarcastic comments, lagi niyang ginagawang katatawanan yung itsura yung pananamit ni Julius as her office boy, para kasing clerk secretary niya. Gano'n. Julius, who hopes to develop his career in the area of customer relations, applies for an open promotional position that would involve working at the front desk. He would interact with public. Sabi ni Marichu ngayon, kung gusto mo ng ganang trabaho, dapat mas maging normal yung iyong pananamit at yung itsura. Kung hindi, dapat sa'yo nasa mailroom supervisor, walang ibang nakakakita. So Marichu is also suspicious that Julius is gay, which she says she doesn't mind, but she thinks Julius is secretive, parang closet queen, gano'n. So she start asking him questions about his private life na hindi dapat pinag-uusapan kung hindi naman kayo friend-friend. Sabi niya, may asawa ka ba? May partner ka ba? May anak ka ba? So si Julius naman hindi na siya komportable. Kaya ang sinasagot na lang niya, politely no. Si Marichu niya starts gossiping with Julius's co-worker about his supposed sexual orientation. So in this case, si Julius is a recipient of harassment based on his sex and sexual orientation. Meron kasing tamang pamamaraan para gawin yun. Mali yung napiling pamamaraan ng kanyang bossing. I-stop share ko muna to kasi malapit na naman mag-end. Pasok lang kayo dun sa dating link po natin. Ano?